going to be showing you how to make the traditional crepe style of pancake. In my bowl I've got 125 grams of plain flour, and I'm going to add to that a pinch of salt, and I'm just going to stir that in. So the other ingredients I need are 2 medium eggs and 300 millilitres of milk. So I'm going to crack my eggs one at a time into a bowl, and putting them into the bowl first before I add them to my flour means I can make sure that I haven't got any shell going into the mixture, and it also makes sure the egg isn't off. So there I've got the 2 eggs, and I'm going to start whisking this. So I'm just working it in the middle, incorporating a small amount of flour, and then I'm going to start whisking in the milk. Just a small amount at a time, and gradually I'm going to make the whisk go out in a larger circle to start incorporating more of the flour. So this way I'll get a nice smooth batter. So once you've got a nice smooth batter, you can tip that into your measuring jug, because it's easier to pour from the measuring jug into the pan when you're cooking them. Now some people make up the batter at this stage and chill it for a few hours before cooking it, but I've done it both ways, where I've cooked them immediately or where I've chilled this first, and I haven't really noticed any difference in the pancakes. So what we're doing today is we're going to use the batter straight away, but I'm first of all going to clear these things away from the work area. So now to cook the pancakes, I'm using a crepe pan, but you can use a shallow frying pan. And it is non-stick, but I'm still going to use a little bit of oil just to help make sure they don't stick. So I've got some sunflower oil, which I'm going to pour a little bit into a dish. Then I'm going to take a sheet of kitchen paper and wipe this over the bottom of the pan. So you want it to feel hot when you put your hand a little way above the pan. Make sure you don't touch the pan though. Then pour a small amount of the mixture in and swirl the pan around, working fairly quickly. You might need a little bit more. You want to keep it as thin as possible though. Just fill in those gaps on the other side. So my hob is bleeping at me because it's an induction hob, and if I don't have the pan on it, it will bleep. So I need to cook it, I've got it over a medium heat until the top side of it goes matte. Then I'm going to use a spatula to loosen it. You'll often find the first one does stick, but then each one you do after that will be fine. If you're using a non-stick pan, make sure you don't use metal utensils in it. Just making sure it hasn't stuck. Needs a little bit more cooking. So you can either flip it over using a spatula or a fish slice, or you can toss it. So when it's looking matte, just put the fish slice under, or the spatula, turn it and cook it for a few seconds, about 20 or 30 seconds on the other side. So when that's done, you can tip it out onto a plate and then repeat the process of greasing the pan. Pour some mixture in and swirl it around. Now I'm going to stack these up on a plate. So you can either cut a square of greaseproof or baking parchment to stop them sticking, or put a sheet of kitchen paper on top. There, and I've made sure that that one hasn't stuck. If you want to toss it, you need to move it so that it's towards one side of the pan. Make sure it hasn't stuck. So get it towards one side of the pan, and then you need to flip it like that, and then cook the other side of it. So it's only a few seconds, and then you can tip that out on top of the previous one and get ready to cook the next one. And you repeat doing this until you've used up all the batter. So to make the pancakes more advanced, we can do them as Lacey pancakes. So either you can put the mixture into a squeezy bottle like that one, or you can use a piping bag. So for a piping bag, put it over your hand, pour the batter in, twist the top of it round, and then cut off the end of the piping bag, and then you need to squiggle this in a random pattern. Make sure some of the lines cross so that it will hold together when you take it out of the pan. So I'm going to leave the piping bag sitting upright in a small jug. So you need to cook it over a medium heat. And I'm going to tip it out onto the plate, and so it doesn't stick to the plain one I've got there, I'm going to put a piece of kitchen paper on. So if you want to make these in advance, you can stack them up with the kitchen paper between them like that, and then put the whole pile inside a freezer bag and freeze them. And it's quite good to then just be able to take them out and heat them up to serve. So this is a little harder to turn, and I wouldn't recommend tossing it. I would use the fish slice and a spatula to turn it over. But you can see how pretty it looks with that lacy pattern. So when it's cooked on that side, you can slide it out of the pan. And don't forget, between each pancake, grease the pan lightly. So to make the banoffee filling, I've got in this pan 30 grams of butter, 4 tablespoons of water, 4 tablespoons of golden syrup, and 125 grams of caster sugar. So I've got the pan on a fairly low heat, and I'm stirring it while the butter melts. So I want the butter to melt and the caster sugar to dissolve. So when the butter's melted and the sugar's dissolved, I'm going to let the mixture simmer over a medium heat until it turns to a caramel colour. So while that's simmering, I'm going to get ready the fruits. So it's a banoffee filling, so normally that would just be bananas. So I'm going to peel a banana, but I'm going to make this slightly different because somebody has contacted me asking if they can use anything else other than banana because they don't like bananas. So you could add or use instead some apple. So I've got a pink lady apple, which I'm going to cut into quarters and then cut a little V to remove the core from the centre. And then I'm going to slice these into very thin wedges. So I'm leaving the skin on these because I think it's nice to have a little bit of colour, and I'm cutting them so thinly that you won't really notice any toughness from the skin. So while I've been doing this, I have been making sure that my syrup isn't burning or isn't going too dark a caramel. So I'm going to slice the banana diagonally into slices, because that way it will give me a bigger size of slice than if I were to just cut it sort of at right angles to the banana. So that's my fruit ready. Just need to wait on my sauce to turn to a caramel colour. While this is cooking, I'm not stirring it. I'm just letting it bubble on its own until it changes colour. So I can now smell this is turning to a caramel. I can smell those sort of aromas from it. So I'm going to lift the pan off the heat and carefully pour in 150 millilitres of double cream, because as I pour it, it might splatter, so I'm going to take care. That's not too bad today. It's not spitting out of the pan at me. So there's all the cream. So that's made a really nice caramel sauce now. So I'm going to add to that the apples. Apples take a little longer to cook than the bananas do, so that's why I'm adding the apples first. So they just need a couple of minutes. I don't want them to be completely soft. I still want them to have a little bit of bite, a little bit of crunch to them. So once they've cooked for a couple of minutes and I can feel that they're a little bit softer, I'm going to add my sliced banana to the pan. Then that's it. That's my Banoffi filling all ready to serve in the pancakes. So I'm going to turn off the heat while I clear the area and get a plate. So for serving this, I'm going to take one of my Lacey pancakes and put it onto the plate. Then I'm going to put some filling onto about a quarter of it. Then I'm going to fold it over in half and then fold the other half over. So I can open that top little pocket and put a little bit more fruit in there. And I've got quite a lot of sauce, so it's quite nice to put a little bit of sauce into a jug to serve with it. I'm using a little individual dish here for pouring the extra sauce. I'm going to rest that on the plate, and then I'm going to serve it with some squirty cream. So that then is my finished Lacey Banoffi pancakes.